So, over the past couple of days, I've been completely addicted and grinding Black Myth Wukong. Like probably most people on the internet right now, I wanted to get this game done with. I wanted to feel as good about the game as I could and feel as complete with my journey as possible. I haven't 100% completed this game. Honestly, there's some things that are keeping me from doing that, which I will get into, but I'm pretty much done with the entire game. I've made it through the story. I've beaten the main bosses. I'm not too sure on my length in the game, to be honest. I'm probably sitting around 23 hours, I want to say. But again, I'm nowhere near 100% completing it. I approached this game a couple different ways throughout it, which I'll get into as well. But I've completed Black Myth Wukong, so here's my thoughts and my full review of the game. Like I said, this video would be the next video on the channel, and that's what I'm doing. So in the impressions video I did, I talked about how at the point that I was at, which was about halfway through chapter 2, I had beaten the Blood Tiger and had gotten the Shadow Clone-esque ability. I was having a blast, and that continued throughout the entire game. This game, for me, it was incredibly fun. It's been a minute since I've been able to put a game down and still be thinking about either the boss that I was stuck on, the level that I was kind of confused about, or anything in that ballpark. It's been pretty much since the release of Elden Ring, where I've really earned and wanted and just felt the need to play a game. This game gave me that exact same feeling. Now, I'm not comparing this game to Elden Ring in any way, shape, or form, because this game does, again, have some things that I don't really enjoy. And again, I will get into, but I think overall, especially with the fact that this is Game Science's first really big game, this game is so impressive in so many ways. I think graphically, this game looks absolutely incredible. Every gameplay that's being shown throughout this video and through any Black Myth Wukong videos that I do, it's on my PC set onto medium settings. I can run it on very high. I just, I don't want my PC to sound like an airplane turbine. But the game looks really good. And from the gameplay I've seen on PlayStation 5, it still looks really good. And I'm so impressed by that. And it goes from the environment design all the way down to the clothing that you get as the Destined One. All of the enemy designs, the level designs, it's all really good in terms of looks. I think it just looks really solid. It has that From Software feel, but also a little more God of War feel, where you feel like you are in a very much labor of love mythology game. And that is what I think this game excels at more than anything else. Whether you're running on a bridge, whether you're taking down a blood-seeking tiger, whether you're fighting a literal mythology dragon, no matter what aspect of this game you're looking at, you can feel the love for not just the game itself, but for the mythology it's based on. This game really does feel like the Chinese mythology version of God of War. It doesn't have the same level of writing as God of War, or really the same greatness as God of War does, but it's certainly up there, and especially in terms of representing the mythology correctly, I think it did a really good job, and I'm not involved with that mythology whatsoever. I know literally nothing about Journey to the West. I knew who Sun Wukong was before this game came out, and I feel like I still pretty much know the same, because again, this game and the Journey to the West story are not like 2 and 2. They're not sequel. This is not a sequel to that. It's not a continuation. This is the studio's own take on certain elements. I think that it just did it so well. I think that the combat for this game, for what it is really good. I think that it feels very responsive. It feels very tight, especially once you start putting a lot of the skill updates into the Destined One. The rolls feel better. The heavy attacks feel better. The stances are all actually pretty cool. I like the idea of having different stances. Now, would I have preferred to get just different weapons in general? Probably, but again, that would kind of conflict with the mythology. So for what they had to work with, I think, again, it was done really well. Not to mention, if you want different weapons, you can just do the transformation abilities. Again, I pretty much stuck with the same transformations the entire game because I really liked them and I felt like they did the most damage. But for me, again, that's just because of how I played the game. I think there's a certain beauty in being able to look at two different people's completely different playthroughs, because I used two very up close and personal transformations while somebody else could have used transformations that they attack the enemy from afar. I think that's just a really cool concept. The music in this game is particularly in chapter 2. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, the headless dude with the guitar, don't remember his name. Very good. That music made me very hyped every single portion of that chapter. But just in general, the sound design is also really good. The noises the enemies make, the noises the environment makes, the noises even the Destined One makes, like when he's waking up in chapter 2 from getting shot with arrows, he grunts, and it just fits. Everything in that regard fits very well. And the fact that this game is just pretty much a complete package on its own is also something I really enjoyed. I have no idea if they're going to do DLC. I kind of hope that they don't, just because I think that this game stands on its own 2 feet very, very well. And I think the sales numbers indicate that. I mean, it's already sold over 10 million units, which is just insane to think about. In the first week of this studio's first major, basically AAA game, they've sold over 10 million units, which is, if you don't know gaming numbers and sales numbers, that's absolutely insane. It's also breaking every Steam record, which is just so cool. I'm very happy for them. Now we're going to get into the territory that anybody could disagree on, and that's okay. If I didn't like something about the game and you did, that's fine. We don't need to hate each other. I know that that's a big thing, especially right now with a pulverizing game that has controversy, quote unquote, around it, like Black Myth Wukong. But let's just, hear me out. If you hate me after my opinion, or if you disagree, totally fine. I'd love to hear your opinion on what I don't like, or if I like something that you don't like, I'm also okay with that too. The first thing that I noticed, I'd say, that bothered me was the camera angle and really just the camera in general and the lock-on system. Now, to give you some insight, I'm playing this on PC, so it might be a totally different experience for PlayStation 5 players, but for me, I felt like the camera in this game just wasn't good enough for the combat that they wanted you to achieve, if that makes any sense. It felt a little too tight. Now, again, it's pretty much a personal preference here. I'm someone who, in most of my games, pumps up my FOV as much as possible, and the only way to do that in this game up until this point, and for me recording this, is literally just modding the game, and I don't want to do that. So for me, I didn't really feel it. There was a lot of times too where it kind of goes hand in hand with the lock-on system, because you'd find that maybe what's a good example here? I'll use what's his name? Is it the Black Wind King from chapter 1? That might be his name. The dude who basically turns into a mist cloud, not the bear guy, but the first one. He, not in his bear form, in his human form, he would turn into this cloud of just death, I would say, and he would kind of make a little noise, or there would be some sort of visual indicator before he's coming at you for you to dodge properly. Now, I was having an issue, and again, I was on PC, I was not using mouse and keyboard, I had my PlayStation 5 controller plugged in. Maybe that was the issue, but it felt like there were multiple times in that fight where he would come at me and my lock-on system wouldn't know where he's coming from. I wouldn't even be able to see him, so I would basically just have to go off of sound, which, I mean, you could say it's a skill issue. I disagree. I don't think that's a skill issue. I think that's a design issue. But there were multiple points throughout the game where that occurred. There was multiple points where the lock-on system would lock onto a boss, and then the boss would do some sort of teleportation or leap or something like that, and the game just wouldn't track it fast enough, and I would take damage from it. It was never to the point where it pissed me off, to be honest. It was just something that was a little annoying because I would just have to use an extra flask. I'm not one of those people though that counts my flasks and thinks that if you beat a boss with a lower flask count, you're better than anyone else. I don't follow games that way. anyway, but it's still something that just irked me just a little bit. The other thing that I would say, how do I say this without sounding mean? The thing that made me the most irritated as I went on throughout the game were those in-between parts of bosses. Now, before this game came out, a lot of people were talking about how this game was pretty much a boss rush, and that's how I approached the game. I knew that the in-between sections between main bosses, or even between a boss and then trying to find a hidden boss, wouldn't be like From Software level, and that makes perfect sense because, again, this is the studio's first major game, and I don't really think that comparing them to studios that have been around for years and years and years really is fair. I don't think that's a fair thing to do, but I do think it's still important to hold them accountable for some of the portions of games that took place in between boss fights. There was a lot of time where it's just the same thing. You're just going between the same road, or it feels like the same road. A lot of the enemies are just the same throughout the chapter, which is fine. Like, I don't think that's a negative, but it just, at a certain point, it gets annoying because you're just really just trying to get to the next boss, and you become so invested with the story. You don't care about all these little henchmen enemies, and you just run in a straight line. But what makes it the most frustrating for me was because the game looks so good. Like, it looks so good to the point where you want to be able to explore things, and you go to jump on something and it lets you jump on one rock, and then you go to jump on the next rock, you jump on that one, but then when you jump on a rock that's maybe half an inch taller, it knocks you off because there's just an invisible wall, and it takes you out of it for a little bit. Again, I didn't expect this game to be open world by any means, but there are a lot of portions that do open up very heavily, and it feels like some of these portions are just not equal. Again, I found a hidden boss in chapter 2 because I was exploring and it felt great, and then later on in some of the other chapters, I felt like I would go to explore a section and it just wasn't explorable, even though it looked more explorable than earlier sections. Does that make any sense? It might not. But yeah, that just kind of just not something I enjoyed that much about it. And then I'd say the final thing that I don't want to say I dislike, because a lot of people might have used it, but for me, it felt a little pointless, was a lot of the just gathering materials to craft stuff. For me, I was able to craft some of the best armor, some of the best weapons, just from playing the game normally, just from fighting enemies and killing things. And it didn't really incentivize me to try to find a certain thing I needed, just if that makes sense. And again, that it's not a huge aspect of the game, and I don't hate it. I don't really just strongly dislike it. I'm just meh about it. It's just like there for me. Oh, I missed one too. Sorry. I know. I feel like I'm being just a negative Nancy right now. Why does this game not have a map or something along those lines? There's literally like a journal in the settings that has these incredible drawings and like handmade art for the game, but we just couldn't have Elden Ring had a map. I mean, pretty much every game except for like Starfield has a map. And I don't understand, especially in a game that's linear like this, why there's not a map. I got used to it and I got over it pretty quickly, but in the beginning, it kind of pissed me off because, yeah, you learn where all the shrines are just by going at the game over and over and over and over again, especially if you're in a very tough either hidden boss or major boss, but it's just frustrating. And it sucks because there's besides maybe the invisible wall and more exploration, a lot of the little things that hold this game back from being perfect and being game of the year to me are things that with just a little more time and a little more just elbow grease could have been ironed out. Again, I wouldn't say that this game is worse than anything else that's come out this year, though. I think that this game stands on its own 2 feet and stands very, very well against every single game that's come out this year. Honestly, if by the time it's the end of this year, this is probably going to be my favorite game that's come out. But there's just little things that have chained this game back that just are annoying because this game is so good. There's so much to love here, and there's so much to respect, and there's so much that makes you want to come back. I'm gonna still be playing this game too after this. I mean, I'm gonna probably take a little bit of break. I'm gonna enjoy some of the other stuff that we're getting within the next month or so, but I just think that there's some things that just need to be ironed out, and that's perfectly fine, because again, this is Game Science's first major game, and they deserve all of the credit for it. So I wanted to make this video kind of like a was it worth the hype, and I do. I 100% think that this game is worth the hype. I've tried not to spoil anything, because I know that there are probably some people who have held out from getting this game just because they think it's too much of a Souls-like and it might be too hard or anything like that. And I'm here to tell you that even though it is very heavily inspired by Souls-likes, and specifically by From Software Souls-likes, that doesn't make this game any less great. Think of it like Lies of P. I mean, that game is absolutely incredible, and it's a completely different Souls-like from Dark Souls and Elden Ring. This game isn't even a Souls-like game. It's an action RPG just heavily inspired by the genre. You've also probably noticed I haven't talked about the controversies that this game has faced, and that's just because I'm very ill-informed in them, and I frankly just don't care, because I think all that shit is stupid. I think that I'll say this much: the person who said that this game lacks diversity, even though that it's a game about a monkey and there's just all of the enemies that are important are animals, is not a real human being. I refuse to believe that whoever wrote that fucking article is a human being. But yeah, was Black Myth Wukong worth the hype? 1000%. I think this game is awesome. I think, honestly, I might like this game more than I like Spider-Man 2. Okay, we're getting into hot take territory now. That's just me personally, though. This might be, honestly, one of my favorite. This might be. It's not better than the Elden Ring DLC, but you can't really count DLC. And again, putting this company up against From Software is just not fair. But can I say that I like this better than Final Fantasy? Can I say that? Is that a hot take? I don't know. I feel like the Game Awards this year is going to be interesting. Okay, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear it. This is definitely one of the longer videos. You know, we've been slowly grinding to 1,000 subscribers, so I really appreciate it. We're at like 750 now, so I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for all of the support on the videos. I mean, the last two videos, they haven't done that well, but honestly, I don't really care. I'm getting people comments and likes and everything like that, so I'm here for it. But yeah, let me know what your favorite thing about Black Myth Wukong was in the comment section, or if you haven't played the game, what is holding you back so I can try to sell you on this game, because I think this is a game that everyone should at least attempt to play. Maybe wait for a sale or something if you're really stuck. But that's gonna be it for me. I'll see you guys in the next video.